All right, so welcome again. Here we are back in TitanNet. And I guess to start with a little bit of review, on the left-hand side, your icons that are on this left-hand column, we can go into the reporting. And here you'll see any saved reports that you have. If you haven't saved any reports, then you would go into this standard reports tab, and then all of the different reports you have access to are going to be here. I will have more access. I'm going to have more reports than you'll have, just the nature of my role. But you can see the reports you have access to, and then whatever report you wanted to run, you can click on it. And just to recap a little bit, so for any kind of appointment report, whether it's appointment and check-in reports, just the basic way to do it is to start with the field of location. And then obviously just put in your location. I'm going to be using undeclared AAC for the demo. And then add another filter and then just do the scheduled start date. For the check-in report, you would do check-in date, but for appointment reports, the scheduled start date is the best filter. And then you can go ahead and choose your date range, and then you could just run this report. I've left, the inactive I've kept unchecked, but you could check that depending on what your needs are. These two, I've kept these, include the canceled, include the no-shows. I've kept those checked, but you can uncheck those if you need to. And then you get data. So this one, I call this maybe like the kitchen sink report because it just, like everything is in it. But let's say you wanted to do a little bit more nuanced report. Well, one thing you could do is you could just export this, and then once you pull it into Excel, um, like as an example here, like I ran this earlier, so I have it in Excel ready to go. And you could maybe start to like filter just in Excel. So if you wanted to like look at different classifications, you could start and select those like this and start to filter it that way. That's always an option, but maybe you want to actually start doing some filters in the actual before you export it. So you can add a filter, and once you add a filter, you're going to see in this list all the different ways that you can filter the report. And I mean, there's a lot in here, so I would say like on your own time, just kind of look through and with it a little bit. Um, but let's say you wanted to run a filter on a particular major, right? So you work in different areas across campus. You ran this report for your whole location, but now you want to like narrow it down by a particular filter, by a particular major. So you can choose the major as your field, and then here in the values, just choose the major. Um, so in this example, I'll just choose undeclared. And so if you notice my original report, I had 458 students. But if I add this additional field and run it again, theoretically, I'm expecting less rows because I'm thinking that there's going to be some students that have other majors in that original run. And yeah, so filtered it down to 135 rows. And so that right there kind of that would tell you something immediately, right? So what it tells me in this moment is that based on this original report that I ran, the majority of my students that I saw were in some sort of declared major, which is kind of that's like something to think about. Okay, and why, and I mean, what questions that leads to, you'll have to sort of like, follow that chain of thought on your own, whatever makes sense for you. So using additional filters, again, I'll just kind of show you, like, let's say I want to also look at, let's say, a GPA. And so I can do cumulative GPA, and then I can do let's do less than or equal to 2.0. And then I can run this report. Now, you might be thinking, well, this is really similar to the advanced search, and you'd be correct in that. The main difference that we're really looking at are these are students that have had appointments, right? Because this is the appointment summary report. So all of this stuff that I'm doing, you could run similar reports like with um, undeclared majors, with cumulative GPA filters. But the difference now is that we're actually looking at students who have had appointments, because the appointment summary report is our main report that really like validates, okay, this student had an appointment during my date range. And so now I have 42 students that we have appointment summaries for within this date range in this location. And again, what you do with that data once you run it is kind of up to you. But what I'm trying to show you and trying to convey is that you can use these reports to think about proactive advising, proactive outreach, um, students at risk. Also, not to always focus on the deficit, but you could maybe look at we could do greater than or equal to 3.0. So these would be maybe your more high performing students. Um, I do think sometimes the tendency is to focus on deficit, where, I mean, that is part of the job, right? Is like helping students like overcome that. But also like there are a lot of students that are doing really well. And so like look, it's almost an equal number of students, 31, that have a GPA above a 3.0. So these are like pretty students that are well performing. So like again, like running the reports and then like using some critical thinking and sort of analyzing what those results mean. Well, we just ran a report of students that have below a 2.0. We had, I think, about 38. Now I ran the report with students above a 3.0, and we have roughly the same amount. So like what you can infer from that, I'm not really sure, but it's something that you can use to help kind of like guide your operational practices, whether that's like I said, proactive outreach, or just general like analysis of the population that you serve. That'll help you kind of like gather the data. Okay. Uh, I'm gonna um I'm going to eliminate these two fields, and I want to run this kind of kitchen sink report one more time. Again, just using the location and a date range. And what I'm going to show you in a moment is okay, here's my kind of my where we started. So first of all, you have the column manager, right? So this one is review. So you can eliminate certain columns that like you're not really interested in seeing. Um, like all these questions, I like to get rid of these. So you can eliminate all of these. There's quite a few. I should have done this in advance. But the column manager kind of gives you this power to eliminate or add columns that you want to see. Okay, so just see what we got here. Okay, so this is all good. So I have all the columns I want. Um, you can export it. So the export will look kind of like this is what the export looks like. So I'd done it earlier. So you have all your data exported in Excel. And once it's in Excel, I mean, like if you're good with Excel, there's so much you could do. You could do a pivot table. You can filter and sort. Um, I'm not going to claim to be an expert on pivot tables. I can certainly like, work my way around them a little bit. Um, but one thing that you can do without exporting is you actually can do a pivot table in right in TitanNet. So if you hover over this icon here, this is going to load the data into this kind of what they call the grid analysis. And so right now we're looking at the total count of student name. And if you click on this fields icon here, this is where you actually, and again, if you're familiar with pivot tables, this will look pretty like familiar to you. Um, but this is where you can then start to like use the fields and start creating like different filters. I'm going to switch that to ID. And then I should have exactly the same. So 458. Yep. And then I'll go. Once you once you have your IDs here, then what you can start to do is look and start pulling in different rows that you want to look at. So what I'm going to look at is reported services. So I have my reported services as a row, my values in the columns, and then the count of student IDs. So that gives me a breakdown, a quick breakdown of all the reported services, and then the count, essentially the count of ID. So how many students were reported with each of these services that you see here. So we can take this a little bit further now, and maybe what we also want to look at is the appointment type. But for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to add this to a column. So now I have it broken down by my services all in rows, and then I have columns for drop-in and scheduled. So once you have this information, again, it's a it's kind of a visualization tool to just help you get like quick access to these numbers, right? Without having to do anything in Excel. You could just do it right here very quickly. You do have the ability to do different kinds of charts. So if you wanted to look at just like a column chart, you can see it there. You may have to play around with different, like this column chart is, I mean, in my opinion, it's not super useful. So you may have to play around with the configurations that you have to get a good chart. But maybe the bar chart. Yeah, the bar chart looks a little bit better here. So you can see the bar chart with, again, your services. And then we have the blue is drop-in, the yellow is scheduled, and then you have your counts, you know. Now these aren't really labeled. So again, like you might have to like do a little fussing around with it to get it how you want to see it. Um, and then back to the grid. So you can you can play around with pulling in different rows and columns to get different visualizations, based on your needs. And everything I want to reiterate is really based on like what do you want to see? Like what's important to you? What's important for your leadership that they are going to want to see? Um, let your curiosity kind of take you, on this one. And like, I mean, I admittedly am kind of a data person. So this kind of this excites me. It may not be your bag, and that's okay. But if you are interested in this kind of stuff and you like to break down data, this is a great tool to kind of get your feet wet and to start to like look at that analysis. I also want to quickly show you, I did do a quick pivot table over in my Excel sheet. So you can do these in Excel. Let me just delete this. So if you take all your data in your Excel here, and you insert a pivot table, um, and again, if you're not really familiar with pivot tables, just Google it. There's lots of YouTube. I think LinkedIn Learning has a bunch of tutorials. You can learn it pretty quickly. So I'll just quickly pull this in. So just to show you essentially that same one, we'll do the student ID as our values. We want to change this to the count, not the sum. And then I can pull in reported services for here. And then we can also do the appointment type as our columns. And so this is pretty much the exact same visualization. The big difference is we do get this grand total here, but these columns are essentially the same as what we just looked at. And I see there were a couple of questions. How do we get the grid analysis? Okay, so how do we get the grid analysis? Yeah, let me go back here. Sorry. So when you run your report, you click this icon right here. So load grid into pivot table, and then it pops up here, and then you have to work with your fields. So the fields I had are already in here, but when you first come in here, this will probably be all uh, pretty much empty. So you'll have to add whatever row you want and then whatever columns. But that's how you get to it. So it's this icon right here. Any other questions? Okay. So yeah, just going back to the spreadsheet really quick. So you can really do the same thing in Excel as you can do in actually the TitanNet platform. Um, really just depends on like what you're comfortable with. Personally, I tend to go towards the Excel side for, just it's what I'm used to. But um, if you wanted to do something kind of quick and tighten it without pulling it into Excel, you can just do that, like I just showed you. Um, the other thing I was going to demo before we move on was these tabs here. So so these are essentially like filters. So if you let me cancel for a second. So if I click on like let's say this major tab and then I hit apply. Oh, that didn't work the way I thought it was. Okay, this is where my this is where my knowledge gets a little bit strained. Where is it here? So if I pull in majors to rows, no, maybe I want to do columns. Yeah, okay. So I pulled in the major to the column filter here. So actually I could do the same thing over here. Hold on. Field. And so what that's going to do is going to basically break it out into the majors here. So if I look now at this first anthropology BA, then I can see this value of 2. So there were 2 students that had GE advising. And then there's another value down here, 1. So this, and obviously we have to scroll. And this may not be the best way to look at it. So again, kind of playing around with maybe the rows is it would be better. You can see so what we're looking at here is we have GE advising, and then we have all the majors here. So like we have our 15 drop-ins, 1 scheduled. And then as we scroll, then we have um, the next services and with the majors bucketed in there. So it really, it's about kind of you playing around a little bit and just seeing like what works best for you, um, how it appeals to your eye, so to speak. Um, but that's how that works. Um, and I've been using summary report for this demo, but pretty much like any report that you run, it could be the appointment report, the check-in report, um, any of the reports like that option, that pivot is going to be applicable, and the filters as well. The filters here are mostly going to be the same across all reports. There may be some slight variations depending on the particular report, just based on the data that you're pulling, but for the most part, like it's all consistent. All right. Any questions about this area before we move on to some of the other kinds of reporting that I want to show you all? Okay, I don't see anything coming through, so I will just move right on. Okay, the next area I want to show you is this analytics icon. So it's right above the reports. So I'm going to click on it. You're going to see more. Okay, so you won't have access to everything here because some of it is just not available to everybody, but you will see everything in the population health analytics. You should see everything in the activity analytics, and I think you should see the student milestone dashboard. These historical trends, um, I don't think they're accessible to you all, and honestly, they're not all that useful in my opinion. Um, but we're going to focus really on these two buckets up here, the population health analytics and activity analytics. So, population health dashboard, it's a tool that you can use, and it's really similar to the advanced search in a lot of ways. But what the difference between the advanced search and this dashboard is that it creates visualizations like right off the bat. So, when you get into it, it's going to look, like you see on the screen now. And you have the big filter that you want to look at to begin with is the enrollment history. So we've just got it has just a few, it doesn't have like a lot of historical terms, but it has a few of the past terms as well as the current and then the upcoming term. So if you wanted to look at it, you can look at it a couple of different ways. We can look at, let's say, the spring 24, which is the last term that we just completed, or we can look at the upcoming term. You can also look at the current term. Let's look at the spring 24 data. So again, this is going to look at students who are enrolled in spring 24. And we can see these are going to be university numbers. But if you look at area of study here, you can then start to narrow it down based on your particular wherever you are, your area of study, right? So if you're in one of the colleges, you could do that. If you, let's say, I know there's some athletics folks in here, so you can look at this based on like any of the categories we have. So we have all the athletics categories here. Um, any of like the special student groups we have, like here's one like first gen, foster youth, um, I am first. These all the different categories, so you can use these as well. The way you use the category, though, just to show you how this works, is let's look at men's basketball. If I only wanted to look at men's basketball, then I would hover over it and where you see where here it says only, I click that. You notice everything else gets unchecked, and then this category is the only one that's checked. So then you click apply, and now we can see there are 23 students in that visualization. So again, enrolled in men's basketball. And then what you see here is total 23 students. You can see a cumulative GPA of those students, the credit completion, um, the predictive risk stuff, like I've mentioned before, like I don't really, I don't pay much attention to it. So you can kind of just ignore it too. I do want to get a wider data set though. So hold on, let's use a college just as an example. Um, let's go with, I'm a humanities person. I'm sorry. I gotta go with humanities. Okay. So, and this is a good large chunk of students that we can look at here. So, about 8,400 students, average cumulative GPA. Some key populations that you have here. So cumulative GPA below a 2.0. So 321 students whose GPA is below a 2.0. you have last enrolled term GPA below the cumulative, um, around 3,700. This is a really interesting metric. What this metric is saying is that these students, their last enrolled term GPA was below their cum. So that is an indicator, that's a downward indicator. That means that their GPA is going down. Um, and so that's not a good thing. And so that's a population that that would maybe be something that you would want to like flag and like take a little more closer look at that, right? Like what, and it could just be, it doesn't always mean that the student is going to go into academic difficulty. It just means that their last term GPA is lower than their Q. The success markers, um, right now we're not really doing a lot with success markers, so it's not really a metric that you can garner too much information from, but we can see there's our 35 missed markers. Um, this credit completion under 67%. Um, so as a reminder, credit completion, uh, this percentage means that uh, they have successfully completed less units than they enrolled in, right? And so below 67% is like that's low. So these 411 students, that's those would be like a potential risk population. This missed marker here, total credits above 120 units. So um, like timely graduation and like making sure students are graduating, within like that 4 to 5 year range, 6 year, um, over 120 units. That might be something to look at there. This one here, full-time currently attempting between 12 and 15 units. So this is an interesting metrics because it's like these are full-time students. 12 units is considered full-time, but they're not taking like a full load, where the full load would be 15 units. Now, because we are looking at a historical term, there's not much we can do about that. But if we were looking at, let's say, the fall 24 term, this number now means something because now there is a potential to do outreach because maybe we would want to look at these students and be like, hey, you're enrolled in the 12 units, but if you take one more class, you could graduate sooner. So timing in this case matters because there is time for them to enroll in another course. If we're looking at the data historically, obviously that's in the past. There's nothing we can do. But if you do look at it like, now looking forward, there is potential to like do outreach to these students and say, okay, hey, there's 12, you're enrolled in 12. Would you consider 15? I'm not saying that that scenario is always appropriate for all students, but I'm just showing you what the metrics could do and what it could lead to. And also, we are looking at the whole college. So if we choose another filter here, let's say the major filter, um, we can just look at the two philosophy majors. So that changes the data a little bit. Now there's only 28 students. So I just wanted to show you some the differences when you select a major here. Students with alerts and open cases. So at least one alert and at least one open case, 5 and 5. Um, alerts are something that we implemented on this campus, I think it was April-ish, I think. So this is just a new area for us, but we can see where those alerts are and where those open cases are. I didn't mention earlier, but we were looking at the overview tab. We also have two other tabs, academic performance and academic program progress. So the performance tab, you're going to see these GPA metrics broken up into different like GPA buckets. So Generally, when you look at this, you'll see like a curve like this. This is appropriate and normal. You've got your low GPA here, your high GPA here, and then these are buckets where students fall into. This is also buckets of showing you the difference between last enrolled term GPA and CUME. So I mentioned it on this overview, this one right here. In the academic performance tab, what it shows you is this is the deficit. So these are students whose GPAs are lower. These are students whose GPAs are higher. So these students, this is great. This means their GPA, their term GPA was higher than their CUME. That's awesome. These students, the term GPA was lower. And you can see the value it was lower by. So like a lot of these students, it was just like a little bit, like 0.25 to 0.01. That's just like a tiny little bit lower. But then you have some students at the bottom here where it was like a full grade point lower. Course performance, number of D's or F's earned, and then the success markers here, and then alerts and open cases again here, and then academic progress. I am kind of going through this a little bit fast too, because what I'm hoping is that you'll just also like on your own time come back and just dig into it, right? That's like the whole point. Here, academic progress, so credit completion percentages. Um, so these students at the bottom, they earned less than 50% of their attempted credits. So that's definitely not good. Um, and then you have the different buckets here, total earned credits. So again, you do have a little bit of a curve here as well. Attempted credits. And then the course progress, these are the success markers here, but the course withdrawals, that might be something to drill down into, number of repeats. And then the major switching, I gotta really caution you about this because it's not real. I mean, the data is not, so the data, so major switching, um, when a student goes from one plan to another, that's considered a switch. I know there are some pre-majors, so if a student goes from a pre-major to like the full major, that's a switch, but it's it's not really a switch. If like they're just going from the pre to the declared. Um, so this one you have to be a little bit careful about. So these are the three different like tabs that you can look at. And you've seen all these numbers, and you notice as I've hovered over the numbers, um, you get like the little pop-up. But what I haven't shown you yet is that you can click into the number and it actually gives you the list of students in the bucket. So this is the students. Let me get out of here for a second. Let me do this one here. No, let me go up here. This one here. So these students, these 37 students, they earned uh credit completion was less than half of their attempted units for the last term. And here's that list of students. And you can download this. So I could download this as a Excel file, and you could do, once you download it, I mean, you do different things with it, right? You can do outreach, you can, just put it on a watch list, whatever, makes sense. You can also there's some charts you can do. Um, sometimes the charts, yeah, sometimes yeah, the charts are kind of hard on this, in this format, but you can certainly download the data and then start to like do a pivot table or something like that. So any of these numbers that you see, you can click into it and it's going to give you essentially a list of those students, which you can then export for for whatever the purpose you want. Some of the other filters, so I mean a lot of the filters here are going to mirror what you see in the advanced search. So categories, tags, classification, transfer students, the colleges majors are all here, assigned to you. So if like you have a caseload, you can like um, you could choose load. Um, Appointment status. So you can look at students who did had no appointment within the term or didn't attend or attended. Um, you can also look at, and this I think is really cool, is um, campaign data this way. So if you're running proactive campaigns, you could look at, let me, let me switch over to NSM for a second. So if we now look at, let's say we just look at a campaign here. So once you get a owner in the filter, then you can see those campaigns here. And then you can look at like specific campaigns. So if I want to look at these campaigns that were run over the spring term, we can get data specifically on, so again, this is enrolled in fall, and I'm looking at intervention information with campaigns run by this individual, and I'm specifically focusing on these spring 24 campaigns. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool for like campaign analysis. Uh, you can run that kind of data that way. Um, you can also look at student lists. So I don't have like I just have like a lot of testing lists and stuff, but like you can look at different student lists. Now, one thing I want to show you is these are my student lists that I've created. This one right here that says test. Um, Let me go over to my list and saved items for a second. Okay. When you create a student list, you may have noticed that there is this checkbox. This is do not show this list in analytics dashboard. If there's a student list that you have and it has like sensitive information, I'm not sure, and I don't really how to quantify what I mean by that other than just like if there's a list you don't want displayed in the analytics, then you can check this box. All right, so it's been updated. Now, if I go back to my analytics, and I go into my health dashboard, and if I go again, fall 24, and college, I think I had NSM, and then student list creator. Oh, maybe it's showing it to me because I'm in my own account. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Okay, so bad example because I'm in my own account, but theoretically, no one else should be able to see this test list because I've held it off. So I think I will verify that because right now I'm looking at my own. So you should be able to see your own, but others shouldn't be able to. I'm going to verify that one just to make sure that actually is working, but that's how it's supposed to work. When you have your student lists, all right, so if you have your student list and if you have it, so even see this column here, viewable and analytics, like theoretically, no one else should. So I'll double check that, make sure that actually is working, but that's how it should work. Okay, so population health dashboards. Let me go back here. Just so intervention effectiveness. So I'm going to look at this one quickly. what this will allow you to do is to analyze different kinds of interventions that you've run. And so what you can do is you have different options. So one population, two populations, one time period, two populations, two time periods. So essentially what you can do is you can look at if I want to look and compare let's do compare fall 23 to spring 24. And then if I want to compare um this is it gets a little trickier here because these aren't broken down by um well okay I won't really so essentially what you can do is you can look at a campaign on so this is population A and population B and you can use these filters here and you can essentially compare um, groups of students. Let me just see. Oh, there's so many. I can't tell which is mine. Um, I'll say this will be your homework is to look at this and just apply your own data. Take two populations. It can be campaigns, it can be student lists. And then when you run it, um, essentially what you're going to get is like these comparisons down here. And it really is good at looking at like if you're running campaigns like the same kind of campaign like let's say it's a academic notice campaign and you run it every semester you can look at one semester and compare it to the next semester and see like population A population B like is one more successful than the other and then start to drill into like the reasons why and you may not come to answers on that, to be honest with you, but you might see maybe you made a change. Maybe you did something different from one semester to the next, and maybe you actually do see a difference. Maybe you see retention is increased, or um, re-enrollment is a better. The metrics are better on one side versus the other. Um, so yeah, that'll be your homework is to kind of look at it with your own with some of your own data, so you can kind of see that. All right. I'm going to look at these two with the next 13 minutes or so. So activity dashboards. So this is going to be more for like, I would say more for like your directors, assistant directors, anyone that's in like a lead role. You have like date ranges here. So you can do a custom or you can just look at like, you can just do 60 days, past 60 days. And then we can look at, let's say, a location. I'm going to do AAC again. So I'm just looking like high level at just the location and within the past 60 days. So it's going to show me this is appointment attendance. So appointments created, distinct students, scheduled drop-ins, no-shows canceled. You get like these cool graphs like so but you can see like these are the weeks here, time of day or the day of the week. So we can see obviously things taper off towards the end of the week. But when does it kind of peak? It looks like Tuesdays, well, kind of varies. Drop-ins kind of peak Thursdays, scheduled appointments peak on Tuesdays in this example here. So hours of the day. So mid-morning for scheduled appointments, and then right after lunch for drop-ins, and then it tapers off. So you have like it starts high, dips down, kicks back up, dips back down. The heat maps. So the darker colors are more in intensity. Um, so what days are you seeing most attendance? And then what hours in the day? So again, like the 10 a.m. hour seems to be, and then right after lunch. And then Mondays seem to be very heavy days. If you, let's say we do a custom date range. So if you wanted to analyze this, let's say you want to analyze it for the semester, you can just choosing rough dates here. Let's say May 24th. So this is again roughly the spring semester. And so now you can see all those weeks. And so you can see at the very start, there was like a lot of activity. It kind of dies down, builds, really ramps up. This is probably when registration kicks in, and then it tapers off. And then again, days of the week, hours of the day. So again, this is not super surprising. The morning peak, the lunchtime lull, the afternoon peak, and then it tapers off. And then again, so heaviest, the heaviest month, April, May's, these were the heaviest times. And then these buckets here. So that 10 o'clock hour, then the right after lunch, really busy times. So do not attend. So when are the students flaking? Right? So you can kind of see those metrics there. So no shows, canceled appointments. And you can drill. Again, I was looking at a big picture, but you can certainly use any of these filters to get more like specific data. The communications one, it's not as compelling in my opinion. It shows like basically just like communications that were sent. So during the date range, um, yeah, you can see like which staff send a lot of communications. I don't know, it's not really that as compelling for me, but it's there. It's there for you, and you can use these filters. So that was the activity dashboard, and then the activity reports. So again, just looking at if we do just for like let's say the semester, and then just choosing location just doesn't. So again, this is high level, but for like managers, you can see like a really easy appointment details with breakdown of different staff, appointments, attendees, hours, no shows, attendance by day, month. So month and day, you can see here by reason. We're already filtering on a location, but by location, and it's only going to show us one location because we only have one location filtered. Organizer. Um, so this will be like the staff and then the students, and then you can see like attendance was one and it was a drop in. These ones, I mean, these can be helpful. Honestly, like if I was trying to look at this data, I would probably just run a report, but um, but that's what you get the quick visualization basically. Right. Any so that's kind of that was everything that I had hoped to show today. Um, is there any questions that anyone has?